All right, so Bezrat Hashem today, I'd like to speak about, usually we give a share as the share that we usually give over here is on Sipur Maisius or Nachman stories, but this week, today actually, I'd like to give a share about something that's very important, an important subject and topic that I think is people don't speak about it enough. The topic is, in today's young Jewish world, may it be in Israel here, maybe in New York, maybe in Miami, maybe in all over the world, there's a vast amount of people, of kids that grew up religious, FFB, from birth, and then about 1920, they start, all of a sudden, everything changes, and not everything changes, that's not even the right sentence, everything changes. They all of a sudden become stuck in, as I would say, the nightlife scene, and people start going to nightclubs and start taking drugs and and the question is that a lot of people are trying to tackle and trying to understand. In my opinion, I don't think anybody, from what I've heard, anybody has the real answer. Everybody's saying it's this, it's the chinuch, it's this and that. Of course it's about the chinuch, because about the way parents bring up a kid, but I think it's more than that. Much more of a deeper understanding. The reason why, as you would say, the drugs, rock and roll, why is everybody, it's funny, a Baal Tshuva one time came over to me and he asked me, he turned to me, he said, I can't understand how a kid who grows up from leaves. He said, this is the best thing ever, Torah and all that. This is how Baal Tshuva, tattoos, everything, and I said to him, the question bothers me also, what's driving the kids to leave the religion? And not just to leave the religion to go to work and to just sit in nightclubs and sit and who knows, drugs and whatever. Everybody probably can imagine. Now I think the point is like this: to be maktim, to give a hakdama, and a very important hakdama to understand what the issue is, in my opinion. There's a famous Zohar that Reb Shimon Yochai writes in the Zohar HaKadosh that the famous thing is like this. The Rebbeinu Shalom created the world. How did he create the world? He created the world, a spiritual world, and a physical world, right? The spiritual worlds are all up there, and the physical world is down here. What's the point of the physical world? To get past the physicality, to get past the physical, and to tap into the spirituality. Now, the more you're into the physical, then the less spiritual. The more you let go of the physicality of the world, then you're able to tap into the spirituality. This is what's called in the Zohar HaKadosh, in the Riyad Rizal, all the Sifrim of Kabbalah, they all write, it's called Oiris. The Rebbeinu Shalom sends down his Or. Obviously, again, just to repeat it again, never to mistake, and the Rebbeinu Shalom is not Or. Or, the Kabbalah say, why they use the word Or? Or means light. Light is the most clean and beautiful thing in this world. Obviously, when we're talking about it, it's a light that comes down, and that's what makes us feel good. It's not a light that's a physical light, it's a spiritual pleasure that we're close to God and all that. Now, that's why Hashem created the world, that we should become close to Him and tap into this spirituality. The problem is, the Rebbeinu Shalom also created, just like there's pleasure from this, there's pleasure on the exact same level. Not the exact same level. I make a mistake, because the pleasure of this pleasure, there's no pleasure on this world. Even if you put all the pleasures together, it doesn't add up. But there is a concept of pleasure in the physical world. And when you have pleasure in the physical world, you can't have pleasure in the spiritual. Now, the point of a person, the whole thing is, the Rebbeinu Shalom wants us to break our midos, break our taivos, our desires for this physical world, and to attach ourselves to the Rebbeinu Shalom. By attaching ourselves to the Rebbeinu Shalom, that is a spiritual pleasure. Spiritual pleasure is being attached to Hashem. Now, what's interesting is Rashbi writes in Zohar, a famous Zohar, and it's a very interesting Zohar. And on Shabbos, I came up with a tremendous, yesterday actually, Hashem sent me a tremendous chiddush on this Zohar, all of a sudden, which I'd like to say over. Rashbi writes that the world is round. 2,000 years ago, Shimon Yochai writes that the world is round. Until about 500 years ago or 1,000 years ago, they would kill you if you said that. They would say, what are you, crazy? You lost your mind? Rav Shimon Yochai says the world is round. And on the other side of the world, there's a continent. He doesn't say Yabeshet, which is continent. There's a race of red-skinned people. And these red-skinned people, he says, they have skin of red-skinned. They do all types of ceremonies and dances and all types of parties. And they take all these types of grasses and all these things because they want to bring down the Or, this light. They want to tap into the spiritual light. The problem is, we're not going to get into it because it's based on a lot of Zohar and a lot of Arizal and a lot of Rav Ashlag, Parashat Sulam. But the point is, the Nekuda is over here that there's two ways. There's the Or that you can bring down to attach yourself, and then there's the Klipa. The Klipa is the klipa is the lack of Or. Now, if you don't have the utensil, the right utensil, let's take an example. Somebody wants to drink healthy, something that's clean water. He has a cup full of dirty water. What do you have to do? You have to toss the dirty water, spill it out. If you don't toss it out and you put the clean water, it's still gonna be dirty water. The kli, which is us, we are the utensil to accept this light of Hashem. We have to be clean. We can't be clean if there's klipot. What is the klipot? Egoism and tavot and all. What's egoism? Egoism is that I want pleasure from this, I want pleasure from that, all the types of pleasures. So the point is, they're doing it, they want to bring down this or all the time, but it comes to the klipot and tuma because they want it for their own pleasure. By Yiddishkeit, in Judaism, we know that we want to bring down this or so we can bring it back to Hashem, to give Hashem an achas ruach, to give Hashem pleasure. Now, so what does Rashbi say? Rashbi says that there's a race on the other side of the world is round, and the other side of the world is a red-skinned people, and they bring down the oiros through klipos. Now, who are these people? What's interesting is, these people are the Indians. The Indians that were in America. Rashbi, before Christopher Columbus, 1,500 years before, Rashbi knew through his Koach Torah that there's a continent called America, and there's Indians and Indian chiefs, and they'd make all these war parties. And what was the point of these war parties? Not to go to war. It was ceremonies to bring down all the Avodah Zarah and all of the klipot. Now, what's interesting is, what are those grasses? We know, drugs. Drugs existed 2,000 years ago. It's not a 20th century, 21st century addition to the world. Drugs have been since who knows when. What are the point of drugs? Drugs is to take the person out of his conscience over here into a different conscience, right? To a conscience that's beyond. What's this conscience? As you would say, to fantasize a little bit more. The point is, what is it? Because they are sick of everything that's here because they realize what's to drink another Coca-Cola, to eat another steak, another woman, another nightclub. It's not doing it for them. So they look for something else, but they don't have the utensil, so it comes down through all these klipot. What's interesting is these three klipot is called Amud, which is a cloud, Eish is fire, and Ruach. If you look into history, I looked it up even, the Indian chiefs, one of the famous Indian chiefs, one was called Eish, fire, one was called a spirit, chief spirit, another one was also cloud. Because their whole idea, the whole thing, who was the chief? He was like their guide, how to bring down these, he had the koach of bringing it down. Now the point is, what's Rashbi saying? Rashbi is saying that there's two ways to tap into this or. There's the right way, which is through kedusha, which is through a right utensil, which we build through mitzvahs and letting go of our egoism. And the other one is, no, through ego, I want, through pleasures. But the pleasures of eating steak and being with women, and as much as you do with it, after a while, it just gets boring. So they look for something else. So they start taking drugs and they start doing other things. Now, what's interesting is, what the chiddush of yesterday that Hashem sent me is, why is the world round? Anybody ever? We know that everything is there's a reason why. Why is the world round? Do you know what the answer is? The reason why the world is round is Hashem sent me this yesterday. Boom. Just like that, Baruch Hashem. I didn't even think about it, just to show that it's only Hashem that sends us everything. Because how did Hashem create the world? He made it tzimtzum. He brought his light and he put the light inside his own light. How did Hashem create the world? There was no place. He was everything. It's infinite. So it says he hid his light in himself and he created a circle. Why a circle? Because only a circle is exactly even in every point. In every point of the circle, right? There's no other shape or figure that's exactly equal like a circle. A circle is exactly equal in each point. So the aura of Ein Sof, Hashem's infinite light that's around the circle, it's not going to be anywhere closer to one point than the other. So everybody gets the same amount. And so why do people have more and less? That's based on the kli, on the utensil, on how much you clean yourself and make yourself pure. That's why. What does Kabbalah say? Kabbalah teaches us that everything that's on this world is just a copy of the higher worlds. So just like the Tzimtzum had to be round, so why is our world round? Because our world is the same thing. It's a chain reaction based on the round worlds that are up in the next world. That's why Rashbi knew that the world was round. Because Rashbi knew that the Tzimtzum had to be round because everything had to be round. So each point of the circle, each person should get the same amount of light from Hashem. So Memelo, in the Ishtalshos, in the chain reaction to the physicality, the physical world, also the world is round. That's just a side point. I thought it's very interesting why the world is round. So let's get back. So through this Rashbi, the Akdama, we understand now, I think, the reason why kids, in my opinion, are going to drugs and all these things is, today, the neshamas of our generation are the highest neshamot. We have the highest souls, but at the same time, just because we have the highest souls, it means that we have to go through the hardest things. The point is, a soul, the higher the soul is, the more it wants to connect with Hashem. Because the soul is bigger, the bigger it was connected to Hashem in a different world, in the worlds where it came from. when a kid is 17, 18 years old and he's sitting in yeshiva and he's learning Gemara 10 hours a day, and he's steiging, he's learning a Taisus, he's learning all the deep inside of a Gemara, and he's not learning anything about why he's doing this, which in my opinion, almost 99% of the chinuch in the world is just do. And when somebody asks a question, let me ask you a question, Abba, why do I have to do this? Because God said so. That's not going to sit well with a kid. That's not going to sit well maybe with your 10-year-old kid. But with your 15-year-old and your 20-year-old and a 30-year-old guy who's not married and he's working with people that have different ideologies, then he asks, why is mine better? Who says I'm right? And he starts asking questions. So what do they say? Emunah. That's not right. Emunah is, of course, the basis. But what's the whole reason for Chassidus? What's the whole reason for Kabbalah? It's all to teach how the world works. What the kid is asking, he's not asking, how do I know about God? Because everybody knows you're never going to know. That's based on Emunah. But the kid wants to know, what in the world is going on in this world? And when there's no answers, his neshama is screaming. His neshama is screaming for that pleasure. So what happens? Nobody gives him the right answers. Nobody leads him to the right, correct way. So where does he end up? He ends up on the second to best thing, which is drugs, nightclubs, supermodels, celebrities, and all the stupidity in the world. But for him, it's not stupidities in the world, because for him, he's getting the or through that way, but the or through the klipa. Like we said, there's two ways. But if we only took the responsibility on ourselves and say, you know what, child, I myself have to clear this up. I myself have to strengthen my knowledge. Or you know what, I do know the answer, and don't be afraid to tell him and say, you know what, your question, let's go and sit now and not learn Gemara 10 hours a day. Let's learn Gemara 8 hours a day, and the other hour a day, learn a piece of Likutei Moharan, a piece of Tanya, a piece of Sfas Emes, and then when he gets more and more, to start learning Kisveri and to start learning Parashas Sulam on the Arizal and on the Sifra Arizal, on the Zohar. And then the kid starts realizing this world is completely not what I was thinking, and he just, because his neshama starts getting fed what its neshama is looking for. But if the neshama is not given this aura of hasagas, of godliness, of why do I have 5 fingers? Anybody ever thought that? Why do I have 5 fingers? God could have made 7 fingers. You know what the answer is? Because the hand is connected, the hey. Yud Kei Vav Kei is the 4 things. 5, the letter 5 is hey, 5 fingers. Right? Why is my head this way? Why is that? Kabbalah explains why everything is in this shape, in that size. Because Kabbalah teaches you about how everything in the upper worlds works. When everything in the upper worlds, you understand how down here. Like I just told you, why is this? So, it's not just that I Stam said it. It's Min HaShamayim that I told you the circle. Because it's the same idea. The kid asks his father, why is the circle? Why is it the world round? So what does the father say? Most fathers, what are you asking such a stupid question for? The opposite. The question is a beautiful question. Everything is from God. I want to know why God did this. So you could tell your kid, listen, I don't know. I could check into it. I'm sure there's an answer. I'm sure we could work on it. But just to say, no. Just keep to your Gemara. That's telling a kid, you know what? I can't deal with this question. You know why? Because for 30 years, I've been sitting and never thought once about Hashem. I've just been thinking about the Gemara. You know what the Baal Shem Tov says? The Baal Shem Tov asks a beautiful question. He says, how does somebody allowed to learn Gemara and learn Torah? It's in the Rivosh. Rivosh is Rabbi Shol Baal Shem Tov. His Talmidim wrote the Sefer. They ask a beautiful question. They bring from the Rabbi Shol Baal Shem Tov, from the Baal Shem Tov HaKadosh. He asks a question. How can somebody learn Torah? When he's learning Torah, he's not thinking about Hashem, he's thinking about the Sugya. And we know you now, let's stop thinking about Hashem for 1 second. So Rabbi Shem Tov answers, there's a heter. Why? Because we know that Torah only strengthens the neshama, that when you're not learning Torah, you're able to go higher. That's the only reason. But what do you see? The Torah is not for Torah itself. It's not just to steig and know another Taisus. It's that you should know the Taisus and the Gemara and the Talmud and the Rashba and all the Rishonim and all the holy tzaddikim that wrote. It all brings you closer to Hashem. Otherwise, there's no point. And what does it mean closer to Hashem? To understand Hashem on a higher level. That when you're 3 years old, you only understood Hashem this much, and 10, and then and that. But if you can always stay at 10 years old, so what's the kid going to say? I'm 30 years old, I think like a 10-year-old, I might as well, what's the point of all this? So he goes to the next best thing. What's the next best? In his neshama, the neshama's telling him, go get the R. And what is he? Of course he listens to neshama. But how does he get the R? He gets the R by passing out from mushrooms and experiencing and going to India. Or in my case, in other cases, you go to a beautiful hot nightclub in New York and he's surrounded by celebrities and you feel, great. And then after a while, you realize it's not either the point. But it could take 4 or 5 years, and it could take people 70 years, and it could take people the rest of their whole lives. Because sometimes they don't find their way. Just like the Indian chiefs. What's the difference? You think nightclubs started 10, 20 years ago? 2,000 years ago, they had a nightclub. They walked around half naked and puffed on pipes with opium, and they did the same thing. But it's the same idea. It's true, it's the same idea. Sherlock Holmes. 150 years ago he was doing that. Well, the Sherlock movies that we all, Shem Yishmor. But what's the point? You have to learn from everything. You have to learn from everything. The point is, Rabbi Shalom shows us everything at this point, that the chinuch is so terribly twisted because the chinuch doesn't teach you about where you're supposed to go with all this. So the kid says, I know everything. I know about Gemara, but it doesn't do anything for me. What am I? The answer is, the Gemara has to do something for you. Because if you knew what the whole point of why you're learning Gemara, you won't stop learning Gemara. And I promise you, I'll give you my number on this camera. I don't like giving my number out. Not just dumb. I just don't like giving my number out. What's my number? 058-627-4240. Anybody wants to learn Kabbalah or anything, any question he has deep, I'll try to answer it. But I promise you, if you're stuck in a nightclub in New York, first of all, I've been there, and I know a lot more than all of you. I promise you that. I have enough witnesses here that know my story. And second of all, I'm telling you, it's all a waste of time. But it's only because your neshama wants this, but you don't know that this exists. So I'm here, and we're all here. The whole Emunah Center is here to bring you to these places of understanding that all you want is really Hashem, and you just don't understand that because you don't understand the language of your neshama telling you. So stop being 4-year-olds and not taking responsibility in your life. It's time to take responsibility. Your life is here to serve God. And you know what? If people don't have the answer, there are other people that do have the answer. And a lot of answers we do have over here. Some answers we don't have, but not everything has to be answered. But at least most of the things have to have an approach. And that over here is what we try to do in the Emunah Center. And also I'd like to add on one thing is very important. The Emunah Center over here, we're doing a lot of hard work. And we're coming here and people are spending money out of their own pockets. I know personally, people are spending money in their own pockets to come here and give shiurim and do things, and they're not getting the money back because there's not enough money. So people could really donate, because I think over here the teachings that come out of here are teaching the most highest things and the most things that really can revive the soul in an instant. And I'm not coming to PR my own channel. I have a channel on YouTube, Light My Faith on Fire. Light My Faith on Fire. I speak a lot more in depth about a lot of Kabbalistic things and Chassidus. And there's halacha. You have to know halacha and all types of things on the Emunah channel. But the point is, really, you really use the donation, even if somebody can give 5 shekel, $1. But if each dollar, and we have 250 people in 1 week, that's $250, 250 shekel, each thing helps. And Bezat Hashem, we should find the iris, and we should get everybody out of the fake klippas of the iris and bring them to real Kedusha, and really to start teaching people how to experience true pleasure in this world and not just wait till the next world to experience it, because we can experience it on this world. And Bezat Hashem, we should be Zohar to Mashiach Tzedkenu Me'ev Yomeinu. Amen. Shkoyach.